My name is Theresa Palmer, and I'm a 45-year-old high school English teacher from Wellington, Ohio. What I'm about to share with you is my near-death experience's testimony of what happened when Jesus showed me the shocking truth about angels. I literally saw and experienced something that completely changed my understanding of the spiritual realm that exists beyond our physical world. But before we start, please let me know where you're listening from. It will be nice to feel closer, even if we're physically apart. Also, don't forget to like and comment on what you thought about this near-death experience testimony. Let's have a fair and open discussion so we can learn from each other on this channel. Enjoy listening. This began on September 21, 2022, when I clinically died for 21 minutes and 37 seconds. I was heading to school early to prepare for my advanced placement literature class. The drive to my school was one I'd made thousands of times over the years of teaching there. It was a beautiful morning, and I remember thinking about how the emerging fall colors reminded me of Robert Frost's "Nothing Gold Can Stay." I was mentally rehearsing how I'd use that connection in class when it happened. Later, the police would tell me that the driver who ran the red light had been awake for over 36 hours, trying to make a cross-country delivery deadline. His semi-truck hit my Toyota Camry at 65 miles per hour. I don't remember the impact. What I do remember is the sudden silence. One moment I was listening to NPR's Morning Edition, and the next, everything just stopped. The doctors worked frantically to revive me, dealing with massive internal bleeding, a punctured lung, and severe trauma to my chest and abdomen. But where my body was experiencing chaos, my spirit was experiencing something entirely different. The first thing I noticed was the complete absence of pain. As someone who has lived with chronic back pain since a horseback riding accident in my 30s, the sudden absence of any discomfort was noticeable. The second thing I noticed was the light. People who've had near-death experiences often talk about a bright light, but that doesn't quite capture it. This light was alive. It had consciousness, purpose, and most overwhelming of all, love. It was like being immersed in pure, liquid love. I found myself in what I can only describe as a vast space of this living light. Although I couldn't see my physical body, I was acutely aware of my existence. My consciousness was clearer than it had ever been, as if I'd spent my entire life looking through a foggy window and someone had finally wiped it clean. That's when I heard his voice. I knew immediately it was Jesus, though he didn't appear as the traditional images we see in churches. He was light-embodied, and his presence carried such profound love and wisdom that it brought what I can only describe as tears of joy to my soul, though I wasn't crying in any physical sense. "Theresa," he spoke, though not with audible words. It was more like pure thought and understanding being transferred directly into my consciousness. "You've wondered about my messengers, haven't you?" And suddenly, I realized I had. Why did some people have profound spiritual experiences, while others lived their entire lives without a single supernatural encounter? These questions had lived in my heart, unformed and unspoken, until this moment. What happened next was extraordinary. Jesus began to show me what I can only describe as layers of reality that exist simultaneously with our physical world. He gestured, though not with a physical hand, and suddenly we were moving through what looked like different dimensions of existence. The first thing he showed me was what appeared to be an infinite web of light. Billions of points of light, all connected by threads of divine energy. "These are souls," he explained. "Each one vibrates at its own unique frequency, like different notes in an eternal symphony." I watched in amazement as some of these lights seemed to pulse brighter when they encountered spiritual realities, while others maintained their steady glow. He helped me understand that this wasn't about some souls being superior to others. Rather, it was about divine timing and individual spiritual journeys. "Watch," he instructed, and suddenly I could see multiple scenes playing out simultaneously, like a cosmic split-screen display. I saw one of my former students, now a young mother, praying desperately over her sick child, unaware of the angels surrounding her with comfort and support. I saw Mr. Thompson, our school's beloved retired principal, in his final moments, his face filled with wonder as he clearly saw the angels who had come to escort him home. I saw my own classroom, where sometimes during particularly moving discussions of literature, angels would gather, participating in ways I had never realized. "Why do some see while others don't?" I asked. Jesus then showed me how our ability to perceive spiritual realities isn't random, but is connected to multiple factors that work in perfect harmony with God's plan for each soul. He showed me how free will plays a crucial role. I never force spiritual awareness, he explained. It develops naturally through choices, experiences, and responses to life's challenges. It's like developing spiritual eyes of the heart. Then he showed me something that brought profound understanding. I saw how what we often perceive as spiritual silence is actually a form of divine protection. Some souls, if exposed to the full reality of the spiritual world too soon, would be overwhelmed. Jesus, in his perfect wisdom, reveals things to each person according to their ability to handle such revelations. He used an analogy that, as a teacher, deeply resonated with me. He showed me a vast garden filled with countless varieties of flowers. Some were in full bloom, others were just beginning to open, and some were still tightly closed buds. Each soul, he explained, is like these flowers. They open in their own perfect timing, according to the wisdom of the Master Gardener. What amazed me most was seeing how angels interact with everyone, whether people are aware of it or not. I watched countless scenes of daily life, in classrooms, homes, offices, hospitals, where angels were constantly at work, protecting, guiding, and ministering to people's needs. I saw angels in my own classroom, helping struggling students find courage, inspiring moments of insight, and sometimes even preventing accidents I had never known were possible. Jesus then showed me something that deeply moved me. I saw how every prayer, every cry for help, every moment of worship was received in the spiritual realm. Nothing was ever ignored or overlooked. Even when people felt alone or abandoned, there was always a response, though it might not have been in the way they expected or could perceive. He explained why some people have more dramatic spiritual experiences than others. It's not because they're more special or more loved by God. Rather, these experiences are given as gifts, not just for the individual, but for the benefit of others. Some people are chosen to be witnesses, to share their experiences and strengthen the faith of others. As Jesus guided me through these revelations, I noticed how our modern world has made it harder to perceive the spiritual realm. The constant noise, the distractions of technology, and our material focus had created a kind of spiritual static. It was like trying to hear a whisper in a room full of chatter. But even with all this interference, God's love and the work of angels never stopped. I asked Jesus, how do we tune ourselves to hear past all of that? He smiled and answered, it's like teaching students to appreciate poetry. The beauty is always there, but they need to learn to recognize it. Small acts of kindness, moments of quiet prayer, and trust in God through difficulties, these are the things that help you fine-tune your spiritual senses. I nodded, understanding. It felt like I had been trying to hear a song without realizing the music had always been playing in the background. He continued, near-death experiences, like the one you're having now, are not random. They are carefully woven into God's plan, each for a specific purpose. Some are for sharing insights with others, some are meant to transform the person experiencing them, and others offer comfort to those mourning the loss of a loved one. I felt a deep peace wash over me as I realized that everything, even the most painful experiences, had purpose. Everyone's spiritual journey is uniquely designed, Jesus said, his voice gentle but sure. Just like students learn in different ways, every soul grows closer to God in its own time. Some need dramatic experiences to wake up, others find their way through steady, quiet faith. Neither path is better, it's all about what that soul needs. Something about that thought resonated deeply with me. It felt reassuring, like I wasn't behind or ahead of anyone, I was exactly where I needed to be. Then Jesus revealed something that touched me deeply. Angels, he began, are not just passive helpers. They play an active role in carrying out God's plans for humanity. They rejoice when you make choices that bring you closer to God, and they never give up on you, no matter how far you stray. I had always thought of angels as beings of light, there to help us when needed, but Jesus showed me how much more involved they were. He explained, they often work through what you might call coincidences. What you might see as random events are, in fact, angelic interventions, carefully orchestrated to help you on your path. I smiled at the realization, thinking of times when my own lucky breaks were actually moments of angelic guidance. I had often wondered about those moments that seemed too perfectly timed to be coincidental. Guardian angels, he continued, are real, and each person has one, sometimes more. They know you intimately and work tirelessly to guide you toward your highest good. Even when you're unaware, they're there. I felt an overwhelming sense of comfort at that. I wondered about my own guardian angel and all the times I had been guided, protected, or simply nudged in the right direction without realizing it. Intuition, Jesus said, is often how these angels communicate with you. The little nudges to act or not act, they're not random. Your guardian angel is trying to guide you. I thought of all those moments when I'd felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to say something kind or to check on someone. It was as if I had been guided by an unseen hand. I had no idea how many times my own angel had intervened, and yet, it felt completely natural. Then Jesus spoke of the power of prayer. He showed me how every sincere prayer sends ripples through the spiritual realm, much like a stone dropped in water. Those ripples intersect with others, he explained, and work with God's plan in ways that might seem mysterious to you. Even when you can't see the outcome, trust that it's being answered. I realized how many times I'd prayed for my students, hoping for answers, and often wondered why I didn't see immediate results. But now I understood, prayer was never wasted. It was part of something larger, a divine symphony unfolding beyond my perception. Jesus then spoke about faith and how it opens the door to spiritual sight. Faith is the key, he said. It's what enables you to see beyond the physical world into the spiritual realm. Those who believe without seeing are often the ones who perceive the most. I thought about the times when I struggled with doubts. But now, I saw faith as a kind of lens that focused my spiritual vision, allowing me to see what others might miss. He also explained that some people in their early spiritual journey are temporarily kept from perceiving spiritual realities, not as a punishment, but as protection. Their souls need time to grow strong in faith before they can handle the light of spiritual awareness, he told me. This made sense. Sometimes, people experience their awakening later in life because they're not ready to understand or process the full scope of spiritual truths until their faith is more rooted. Pride, Jesus said softly, acts like a curtain that blocks spiritual sight. Humility, on the other hand, opens your spiritual eyes. I understood this on a deep level. I thought of moments when I had been humbled, those times when life forced me to let go of my own pride and trust in something greater. In those moments, I'd felt closer to God and more open to His guidance. He also spoke of forgiveness. Holding on to bitterness is like putting a fog over your eyes. When you forgive, the fog lifts, and you begin to see clearly. I reflected on my own journey with forgiveness, how it had been hard at times but always brought peace once I let go. I could see how this principle had played out in my life, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the healing power of forgiveness. Then Jesus shared something about children that was particularly beautiful. Children, he said, often have a natural ability to perceive spiritual realities. Their hearts are pure, and they haven't yet built up the walls of doubt and cynicism that adults often carry. I thought of my younger students and how they sometimes shared profound insights, as if they could see things beyond the material world. It amazed me how connected they were to the divine, often without even knowing it. He went on to explain how, as we grow older, we lose this natural spiritual sight, not because it's taken away, but because we cover it with layers of worldly concerns and doubts. But, he assured me, you can recover this sight through faith, prayer, and a childlike trust in God. Music and worship, Jesus revealed, also played a key role in spiritual perception. When you sing praises or worship sincerely, you create windows of light in the spiritual realm, he explained. Angels can more easily minister to you through worship. This was a powerful moment for me. I thought of the moments in class when we studied poetry or literature that touched on themes of faith, and how those moments seemed to open something in the room, as if we were all more connected to the divine. Jesus also showed me how different forms of prayer affected spiritual perception. Contemplative prayer, he explained, creates the clearest channel for spiritual awareness. Rushed, mechanical prayers don't have the same effect. I realized the importance of slowing down, of being present in prayer, and truly connecting with God. The hurried, distracted prayers I had said before my NDE seemed so distant now compared to the deep, focused prayers I was learning to offer. Then he spoke of the power of love. When you love others sincerely, he said, You create bridges in the spiritual realm. Angels use these bridges to work in your life and the lives of those you love. I thought about my love for my students and how sometimes just a kind word or a moment of encouragement could change the course of someone's day. Jesus had just given me a deeper understanding of the unseen work that love did in the spiritual realm. Finally, he spoke of suffering and its role in spiritual perception. Suffering, while never desired, can sometimes crack open your normal perception, allowing you to see spiritual realities you might otherwise miss. I reflected on my own pain, the struggles I had faced with chronic illness. It had been hard, but I now saw how that suffering had deepened my understanding, brought me closer to God, and made me more receptive to His guidance. As we continued our conversation, Jesus explained how corporate worship creates a spiritual environment where angels can manifest and minister to people's needs. When people gather in worship, he said, they create a dome of light where angels can work more freely. This was why those moments of shared worship, those powerful class discussions, had been so transformative. We had created an environment ripe for spiritual revelation. Jesus then spoke about how our thoughts and words impact the spiritual realm. Positive, faith-filled words create beacons of light that angels can use, he said, smiling. That's why it's so important to think about what is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. I saw how much our words, spoken in faith, could influence the unseen world around us, and how important it was to speak words of encouragement and kindness, especially in my role as a teacher. Finally, Jesus revealed something about death and spiritual warfare. There are battles fought on your behalf that you're not meant to see, for your own peace of mind. Angels are working behind the scenes to protect you from spiritual harm. Watch, he said, showing me how angels attend to every passing soul. No one ever dies alone. I thought of students I'd lost over the years, and he knew my thoughts. They were all accompanied, he assured me. Every one of them had angels easing their transition and comforting their loved ones. Even when no human is present, angels are there, guiding and comforting. They minister to both the dying and their loved ones, easing the transition. I was overwhelmed with gratitude, knowing that those who had passed had never truly been alone. Just then, I felt a familiar tugging sensation. Your time to return is near, Jesus said gently. But first, understand this. He showed me how angels sometimes work through our memories, bringing to mind exactly the right scripture, song, or encouraging word exactly when we need it. These aren't just random remembrances, but carefully orchestrated moments of spiritual support. He explained that this is why it's so important to fill our minds with good things. They become the reservoir from which angels can draw to encourage and strengthen us in times of need. As the vision began to fade, Jesus gave me a final message: share what you've learned. But remember, each person's journey is unique. Trust my timing for their spiritual sight. The pull grew stronger, and the next thing I knew I was back in my body, surrounded by medical equipment and the concerned faces of doctors and nurses. The medical team was amazed by my recovery. They later told me that they had been about to pronounce me dead when my heart suddenly started beating again. The trauma surgeon said he'd never seen anything like it in his 27 years of practice. What I learned during those 21 minutes and 37 seconds has helped me understand why some of us see angels while others don't, and more importantly, why that's perfectly okay. Whether we can see them or not, angels are constantly at work in our lives. Some of us are given the gift of seeing them for specific purposes in God's plan, while others are called to walk by faith rather than by sight. Neither path is better than the other. They're just different ways that God works in our lives. The most important thing I learned is that God's love reaches every single one of us, whether we can see the angels He sends or not. Every person is precious to Him, and He works in each life in exactly the way that's best for that individual. So if you've never seen an angel, don't be discouraged. They're there, working on your behalf whether you can see them or not. And if you have been blessed with spiritual visions or encounters, remember that these gifts are given not to make you feel special, but to help you encourage others and share God's love. In the end, what matters most isn't whether we can see angels, but that we know and trust the God who sends them. Because every one of us, whether we realize it or not, is part of His grand plan, being watched over and cared for with a love more real and deep than anything we can imagine. And that is the most amazing discovery of all. My experience has given me a new mission alongside my teaching, to help others understand that no matter what they can or cannot see, They are never alone, never forgotten, and always loved by a God who knows exactly what they need and when they need it. My near-death experience wasn't just about seeing what lies beyond. It was about understanding how heaven touches earth every day, whether we realize it or not. And that understanding has made all the difference.